We're building a show and a game at the same time, an animated 2D, think Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, like epic fantasy type of content. And then the game is, think like Baldur's Gate 3, D&D, that kind of feel, only easier combat system.
I want it to be a story-driven game where you're very worried about the story. You want to talk to NPCs. You want to know how the story resolves.
We want to create fans of an IP of a world that get the opportunity to go from fans to players that create characters in that same world and then progress the plotline of the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Fateless podcast. Joining me from the Fateless team is going to be the great Sham and Simon. And then very excited to welcome from Story Games. We've got Steve and Michael dropping by to chat. How you doing?
We are so good.
I'd say we're doing exceptionally well.
Exceptionally well. I think we're doing great.
Great. Well then, I guess just go ahead and one of you just kind of give us the quick, 30-minute or 30-second rundown of kind of what Story Games is and what you're up to over there.
I was gonna say 30 minutes. All right.
Yeah, 30 minutes. I'm just gonna let you go.
It's a TED Talk, actually.
Yeah, I could probably take it up to
you could do 30 minutes.
Yeah, I could. So, really simply, we're a Transmedia company. So we're building a show and a game at the same time that we want to have a symbiotic relationship. So the show is like an animated 2D, think Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, like epic fantasy type of content. And then the game is, think like Baldur's Gate 3, D&D, that kind of feel, only easier combat system. Our thinking there is because we want to create fans of an IP of a world that get the opportunity to go from fans to players that create characters in that same world and then progress the plot line of the world as well. So we'll have season 1 come out and then Adventure Path 1, and the content that the players play through will then connect to season 2 of the show. So that's it in a nutshell what we're doing.
That's super cool. Like, really,
I don't care who
really
you
cool
are.
idea.
That's dope.
That's super. No one's done it. That's cool. We're doing it. That's cool.
Well, so Michael, what's your
What are you doing?
Steven. What's your part of it? What's your part of the concoction?
I'd say most importantly, Steve's my best buddy in the whole world. So I'm kind of his support system and the co-founder of the company. We built this vision together and everything kind of comes back to us. So legitimately, like, just being his wingman. But I come from the entertainment industry. So I've been a screenwriter for the last 10 years and I'm the head of narrative. So everything to do with the show, I've obviously scripted and created, but then I also kind of oversee like the naming of things for the game. You know what I mean? And the adventure path, the story of the adventure path. That the players play with a team of writers. So I do all the story stuff.
So it's kind of interesting.
I got to hear the first. I got to hear the first chat. Not the whole. I didn't listen to the whole thing yet because I want to like give it a deep listen. But that first chapter was sick, man. It's really good.
I didn't send that to you. That's really cool. Yeah, thanks for listening, man. I
get all the cool stuff.
Yeah, what's neat about the preface is it services in the same way that the opening of Lord of the Rings does, where you have that like 10-minute, like this is the prehistory of the world. And that's what you listen to, Sham, is like the preface is the first age of our world called Eldaron and like the big things that happen. And then the show and the game all take place in the second age of the world. So there's like that deep kind of lore and history that you would get from Lord of the Rings.
Are we able to link that, by the way, to this podcast, or is it not out for sort of general release yet? I can't remember where you're at.
Yeah, so we finished production today on the show. It becomes final, which is really fun. So it'll in about 2 months we'll do our release, but now we got to do our whole big marketing campaign and all that good stuff. So
we do have a website for you guys for at least maybe the first episode. I want to say you guys have.
Yeah, I think that's You can actually, for anyone watching or listening, you can go to playstorygames.com and then there's a little sign up list to join our mailing list, and then we can communicate out to you when the show is all ready, just in a couple months here.
Yeah, it's funny. So the backstory of us actually getting together is kind of interesting.
I was hoping you would share this. This is so great.
Please, go ahead.
So I'll kick it off, and then I'll kick it over to Simon because he's got his own part of it as well. But we actually met in Greece. Actually, just Steven and Dan and Simon and I, we met in Greece for a Magic Media event, right? So we're using the same co-dev studio, and we love them. Hopefully you guys are also loving them, but
we do. Yeah,
we're loving all the, all the work that they're doing. But we met at an event that they were throwing and just freaking hit it off, man. I mean,
yeah, pretty
you
instantly.
guys are awesome. But yes, Simon, unfortunately, I mean, here, I'll pass it on to you. You can talk about your experience.
I was really sick for that week. I was just like, everyone's out in Greece. I was there for about the first day. And then after that, so I did the intros and I was like, hey guys, how's it going? Kind of got the vibe. And then I was just in bed for the rest of the week.
What did you have? Sorry to cut you off. What wasn't I remember, like, I think the last time I saw you, you kind of tried to rally and you like stumbled out.
Yeah,
you're like all sweaty. You're like, I was like,
I think
I
think it's the most sick I've ever been in my life, by the way. I was just so bad.
Wait, what was the symptoms?
It was a strain of COVID of some sort. I was just I was just wiped out. But to the point where I didn't eat any food. Like Dan just kept coming up. Do you want some food today?
We had the best food, like private chefs.
With like a private chef at this beautiful mansion.
It was so bad, and I felt bad as well because I was just missing like all of the everyone did their own presentations on their game and that whatever they were there for, and I was just missing all of it. And so I didn't really get to meet you guys properly until GDC. Right. Obviously, we came out and we saw you guys at your booth, and you were kind of like showing off your first kind of like slice of your demo and that type of stuff. And so we kind of probably got to catch up a bit then. But yeah, I felt super bad. I was just like, I'm at this event.
Oh, nothing to feel bad about.
It's a beautiful setting, and I was just like, damn. Yeah.
We're like, do you want some of this amazing food? And it's, like, when Simon said no, I'm like, all right, this guy is really sick. I would wake up in the morning and go, that's it. What's going on over here?
Yeah. And I'll say this too, maybe to put a bow on the introduction and the connection point, was like, we bonded pretty instantly over just the game dev thing, we're starting our studio and we're raising and like trying to figure it all out and, making a game and serving a market. And, I remember within like 30 minutes being like, I'm drinking the same Kool-Aid these guys. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, would you guys mind? We're only using Magic Media for art, but it makes me curious what are you guys using them for? Like they do a lot of different.
Yeah, they're doing the dev too.
Co-dev, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So they I mean, really what it is, I mean, it's very, very collaborative at this point. And I guess, you guys might have heard some of this, but I'll just recap it. But yeah, so we really do a lot of the design and vision of the game, right? So we come in and we want to make sure that the mechanics work this way and that characters feel this way and the story is going to be this way. And then we work with Magic Media, and it's back and forth, right? They also have designers. They also have, our writer is actually is actually from on the Magic Media side, right? Alan, he's amazing. So co-dev is the best words. Like we really just grabbed a giant ass team.
Yeah. Well, but it's interesting because sometimes you say co-dev and people think, so you've given them a lump of cash, and you're basically going to say, we'll see you in 18 months, and we want to see what you produced.
No, whereas not you guys.
In this situation, it's more like we are a team working towards a goal, but they're bringing in a bunch of experienced team members to help us do it. And it feels like we are one team at this point. Yeah. If we're going out for drinks when this launches, we're all going out for drinks.
Yes.
It's that type of feel.
The thing I loved about when we met in Greece and really bonded over was the way you guys talked about the hero collector and specifically solving the problems in it, like the player pain that you saw. Like that's what ignited you, and then you just created your own vision for that. Like, and after building a community and hearing from that community, being like, look, we're all seeing like the same stuff. So would you just make a game that's like solves these problems? Like that's where Fateless and all of this the co-dev stuff was born from. And so I love how you said like, you have this vision and direction, and then you just have a team that happens to be some of it with Magic Media that you're doing it with. Like I think
what's your guys? Yeah. What's your guys' spark? So I mean, like I maybe you could talk a little bit about your background, just a little bit more like where you came from, and then what was your spark for like, hey man, I'm going out, it's time.
Yeah, good. So Michael shared, I always like to say he was born a writer, and he won this national writing contest in 5th grade. I was like, yep, that's what he was made to do. So he's been a writer the whole time. Michael and I grew up as gamers, and I would even say closet nerds. Like we would, play sports and stuff in high school, but then we'd come home and go in the basement and, start gaming on our NES.
That's so like me. That's so like me.
And kind of the point I'll jump you to was our cousin introduced us to Dungeons and Dragons, and we were 18. And for us, we just fell in love, like that we could control these characters that were in a world that were like kind of reflections of our own that could have an impact on the world. And like, you could do anything, right? I mean, that's the beauty of that system, right?
Have you guys played D&D?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
okay.
but
too much.
Yeah. Unfortunately, very similar to you guys, for me at least, I saw a lot of problems with the D&D system, what we just call high barriers of entry. The biggest one being it's just a really complicated rule system. And I'm not trying to shit on it because I literally love D&D. I played Pathfinder, Fate, all of them, Blades in the Dark, but there it is.
Hey,
look at that D20 out. Yeah. And so
always ready.
And I love the D20. Like, don't get me wrong, but over decades of playing, like, and trying to invite people to play, like, you don't understand. It's the best thing ever. Like, it's not, D&D isn't what you think it is. It's not like wizards and cloaks and stuff. It's like amazing character
It's definitely those things. It's definitely wizards and cloaks and spellcasting. I mean, you should.
That's fair.
But we would invite people to play, and they'd be like, I'm not going to read a 450-page rule book. I don't have 5 hours like to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't commit like that. So, anyways, those are the problems that we saw. That to kind of take you to this pivotal moment. I wrote this adventure path that I was excited to take Michael through in my own system, and I used some League of Legends lore I was at Riot for 7 years, and I used kind of the Freljord and wrote this adventure path, and I created this voiceover of Lysandra, for those who know who the League of Legends lore. That was honestly, Sham. It was what you just listened to. It was like a preface. It was like and I had cinematic music, and it was like my sisters were fools, right? Like awesome, and it created this really immersive environment. And I'm taking you to that moment of the spark where I kid you not, I spent 3 weeks on it, and then we paused, we didn't play, and we just sat there and were like, wait a minute. What if we made this transmedia experience where like you could fall in love with this world? We were making Arcane at the time, and like it was a show that brought you into this world, but then you could connect it to a storytelling experience like D&D. So anyway, that was a little long-winded. I apologize, but that's kind of the story of the campfire and story games and the problems that we're trying to solve that we've seen in the tabletop RPG space and already see happening when you think of like Last of Us going from a show to a game, right? Or Arcane a show to a game, right? And
so how are you navigating
Hogwarts Legacy is a good example too.
How are you going to navigate when you want to drop this kind of like big update, but you kind of, I don't know if they really do kind of like work in parallel in terms of timing, but in my head, it feels like the kind of like storytelling part and, creating that side should take longer than if you just kind of, want to drop this update for my game. So how are you guys trying to make sure that fits together?
Yeah, beautiful. So timing is everything there. We care about one timing point in particular, and that's when a season ends, we are ready to drop the second or third or whatever the following adventure path. Does that make sense?
Day and date.
What did you say?
The same day, right?
Yeah, the same day
that the finale of the the 10th episode comes out.
That's the whole concept of the transmedia experience. And so, we're starting on development now because like figuring out the game system and how it works is and how to build efficiently is critically important to be able to pull this off. So we can go season 1 comes out, adventure path 1 comes out, and then the nice thing is from a development perspective, we can take a break. We even want a break in the same way that there's a break between Game of Thrones seasons, right? So that'll be a pause period so we can finish development and then release season 2 of the show when that's ready, adventure path 2 that players will play on. So that's the symbiotic.
And with the talking I mean, I'm guessing that at least at this stage, you're not picturing that we're going to be making Arcane while we're making the game, right? It's not kind of like to that type of fidelity. Can you maybe describe like what it will be like?
Yeah. Do you mean from the artistic style, or do you mean from the development perspective?
Yeah. Well, no, from the development side, like when I'm watching, the show, like I've heard that first thing. I'm expecting that there's going to be visuals that go with this. What is that going to be? What is that going to be like?
Yeah, so it's a 2D animated series, right? So if you know, like Blue Eye Samurai is a good example. I think Arcane, but not that's like, oh my god, that's a crazy expensive, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 2D animation. That it's the same animation style that we're in 2D, right? Because it translates really well to a game. So it's that same visual language, if that makes sense. And so, from a development perspective, the show has been in development for 7 years, Michael? Like the script is done, the season is written. So we're really far along there. We have storyboards to go with it. So we're far along in development on the show, which is why the studio is very focused right now on the game and building out the adventure path and figuring out the mechanics and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
And how is that going so far? Do you feel like game development has been like everything's super smooth, or how is that? And listen, I worked at indie for 10 years. I know how this stuff goes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, let's get into it. It's, I mean, we know what we're going to talk about. So super smooth is, if anyone in game development says it's going super smooth, then you're like, okay.
We're a year and a half old. I'd say I spent a lot of time thinking game development was going smooth. And
yeah, that's fair. But I mean, like, you know, at some point, you're running into some cliffs. So we literally just pulled out our combat system, and we're taking it not all the way back to the studs, but pretty far back, and doing tweaks and stepping that into pre-production, kind of resetting the game structure. Because just to touch on it, the problem we were running into is the way that we were building the game. It just wasn't supporting narrative. It wasn't supporting this linear adventure path that we need the story to be, right?
Sure.
So you can meet those connective tissues. Think of like the bookends to go from season to season.
Actually, can I add one more thing there that I think is important that we identified too? I started to feel like in a player session, all we were doing was thinking about cards, like what's on the cards, what cards do I need to trade with. And that was kind of the death of story. Like we're called story games. I want it to be a story-driven game where you're very worried about the story. You want to talk to NPCs. You want to know how the story resolves. And if you're literally, while you're playing, spending too much time trying to figure out how your cards sync up with your buddies and what your cards do in your hand and what your drawback, if you're just reading too much, we just started to see that as a big problem. We were kind of only getting further in the weeds with that than kind of, we were overblowing our complexity budget, basically.
How did you make that cool, though? But how did you go from, you know, this is a game we've been making for the last, whatever it is, 18 months, to then say, guys, actually, we need a massive halt and change? Because that's quite a scary thing to. We've gone through a similar thing. We'll talk about that in a second, but it's a scary point, right?
It is. Yeah. I'm really happy we went here too, because it's scary, but it's also really exciting to talk about. And if I'm being honest, pretty fascinating too. The concept for me is failing forward, right? Like, and if I meet game devs that are failing fast, that excites me, because I'm like, cool, you're figuring out what doesn't work, right? So to kind of even twist the dagger a little more and be totally vulnerable, we had 2 prototypes before this. So like, I would say technically this is our 3rd combat system that we're dropping, but that's kind of a not the correct way to look at it, because
you have to find the fun though. You're
building it.
That's what it is, man.
And we're finding fun each time. Like that's the critically important thing. So the decision to take you to the moment, we had a player come in that actually has joined us as a concept artist. I'm going to be really blunt with the moment. Literally came in, kind of heard the vision and the direction, everything, you know, we just walked through, and then he played the game and they were like, I see it. And I'll actually never forget it. They had a pros list and then a cons list that was pretty long, right? And was like highlighting problems that we were seeing, right? And it was this light bulb moment for me. Michael came over, we talked for about 3 hours and just, you know, assess like, where's the vision? And is the game hitting that? And for a couple months, we've been having these alignment meetings where the narrative team was like, the game doesn't support what we need. Like we're banging our heads against the table. And it just, this light bulb went off. And frankly, I had a lot of peace and clarity around it, where I was like, this is what we have to do. Like we have to drop the system, take it back to the studs, keep the things that we love. And you guys, like, we're a week and a half in, and it's the studio's on fire. It's like now we're like, oh, okay, we made this mistake. That Michael just said it, right? With complexity budget was a little high. And now we're all super aligned again and have a clear direction, and we're like flying from pre-production already. So anyways, that's kind of the whole story.
Would you mind if I add one thing that I think's important to talk about? It's about the people, the purpose of the guy, the man that was our game director was someone that Steve and I loved personally, that we thought was brilliant, like smarter than us at game design. And, you know, frankly, I was very focused on the show and writing stuff, and Steve was very focused on like fundraising. You know, we're startup, we need money. So honestly, our focus was kind of just elsewhere. And and I think because we just respected the game director that we had so much, we probably let things get a little bit too far down the, wow, this is really complex now. Before we, like I said, went over to Steve's house and was like, hey, I think we really need to look at this. I think this is actually a huge problem.
It's funny because like we basically went through almost exactly the same thing.
Except
I'm that guy that these guys should have just been like, you know what, kick this guy out of here. Like he doesn't. But the reality is
now. No, it's not. Bring it.
But this is the thing. This is the thing. So when you for our system, I'll talk to our system for a second. Right, we had this grid system. Simon just talked about, just did a video about it and did a really great breakdown of kind of like. So we had built this system that I think is actually really interesting. It works really well. It solves a lot of interesting problems. It's functionally very fun. It adds a lot of depth to the game.
Yeah.
But what we always kind of were saying is like, is this right? Like and before we even started implementing, we were like, is this right? Okay, well, we're going to hold on to this until we are sure that we need to pull it out because we'd already built a bunch of systems around it. Things were working. We were trying to fit things around size and some other cool things that we were doing. And then when it was like, it got to a point where the question was, okay, is this fun? Probably, but like you said, there's pros. Then there was like this big list of cons, right? Things that like, okay, well, this is a little more too complex in this way. It's gonna add development time. It's gonna add costs here. It's gonna add complexity here. And it's like when you see that list and you understand that a change needs to be made, it's hard to make that change. But when you do, I mean, you guys feel it, right?
Well, so I would say like we've come out the other end of that decision. So, and it was probably a good. It's probably really a 2-week decision, or maybe at least a week decision where, we went into different sessions and we were talking about what would it look like if we changed it? And, have we gone too far in this direction already to change and all these different things. And eventually we were like, look, we're going to cut it because we think for the fun of the game, for the average player that comes in, they will have more fun with this different system. So, and that's ultimately what we're making the game for, is that people are going to come and enjoy to play the game, right? So, and as many people as possible will be able to just pick it up, use it and understand what they're doing without feeling like they need, this kind of 20 guides on how to do a simple thing.
And it opened up that new avenue. I think that's the other thing to maybe highlight, and maybe you guys are feeling the same thing, and you can talk to it, Simon, but opening up that new, we haven't really talked about it exactly, but
I know you haven't disclosed it yet.
But the new stuff.
But the one thing I just want to say, which is similar to your experience that you mentioned there, Stephen, is the energy from the team went up 500%.
Yeah,
because everyone was like, we love this new direction, and not that they didn't like the direction before, but it was just like,
it's just something about it, right?
Something now feels so clean and slick, and the energy both from not just Fateless team, by the way, the Magic Media team, 100% the same. Everybody is just like, this is brilliant. We've got the UI sorted, and it looks like it just feels so good. So it's interesting because kind of like on this pause point, it's like, is this right? Should we change it? Should we change it? And then when we've done it, it's just like, bam, this is so great for us.
It's cool that a group of people can all identify. I'm going to call it that magic in the bottle thing, but like energetically, when it feels like, oh, whoa, this feels good, this going this way. Versus, like, I'm confused and feels like we're kind of not aligned now. Like everyone can identify. Actually, maybe I think good companies have a culture where people can talk about that. Like if you have a hierarchy or someone that's making the decisions and doesn't like input, I think that can get kind of stifled. But it sounds like we both have cultures, at least you collaboratively with Magic Media and us internally, where, I think we all kind of identify what the problem was and then realize there's a better direction to run. And now we're running that way. It's a good pivot, Hard to do. Good.
I don't believe in coincidences. Like it's a really fun. Just hearing you guys talk about it. If you take out, I think the game system, it's the same story. Like as both of you were talking, I was like, I mean, I can empathize with literally every word of this in a way that's just really cool and powerful. And again, I think is why game developers tend to bond really quickly, because you're
you got these same challenges,
you feel it. Yeah, like, oh my God, I know that play.
Yeah.
But it's go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was actually going to move on to a different topic. So I don't know if you wanted to carry on with that, Sham, but I was really interested in, you said you had to spend a lot of your time in terms of doing a raise and, trying to bring investors along with the journey and what have you. And obviously your pitch, your kind of like style of game is different, which to investor potentially is scary, but also quite interesting as well. So I just wondered, like, how have you tackled that, and and where are you guys at with that right now? So I know when we met in Greece, that was a challenge for you guys to get that over the line.
Yeah.
Steve, I'll let you take that one, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Buckle up, man. I'm gonna go real honest with you guys. First of all, I think it's appropriate to kind of set the stage. It's just the hardest time to raise in the last decade plus. So just that alone has been very difficult. We're pitching a transmedia experience that hasn't been done before. And so just taking that into a market with VCs where, things are tight for them alone, it's hard for them to raise, has been very difficult. We've had to tweak things when we talk to gaming VCs. Like, we basically just talk about the game because that's what we're focused on and realistically raising now for anyways. But from a VC and strategic perspective, we're really risky because that's two types of execution risk. I mean, we even talked about that a little bit here, and I fully recognize and understand that we are a gaming and entertainment studio. And I mean, even internally, like we're trying to solve the problem, right? How do you fit narrative and game together? And it's been hard, but it's also fucking amazing.
Sure. So, when it lands, it just feels so good, I bet.
And we're doing it. So, but I get from VCs, they're like, this has never been done before. This seems really complicated, right? And what's interesting is on the angel side, for those of you who know angel investors, angels are, kind of much more about the why and the vision and the founders and thinking big and the passion. So that's been a lot of our path. And then from a development perspective, what we're looking to get to is a playable demo that just undeniably shows this transmedia experience. And that's, we have the, Sham, you listen to the preface, right? We have this other component called the silver dress, which basically serves as the bridge from season 1 to the start of the next adventure path. Think of it as a little piece of content, right? So we have that ready to go. Now we're getting the game to the point where we can deliver that transmedia experience. That's what the next two months are going to go towards, and we have 2 months left of funding. But here's God, I mean, I maybe did a emotional, but you guys, like the power of game development, and I think vision and passion and direction is the team that we have. We're all just going to keep going if we run out of funding. You know what I mean? Part-time, full-time, doesn't really matter. Like, we're not going to stop because we see it. Like, we know even going back to the studs, we're like, it's still here. Like, we've got it. The show's done. We know what the adventure path is. Like, let's just figure the game system out and solve that complexity budget, and we're there. So we're going to keep going until we get an angel or get to the point where we can go to a VC or a strategic. Publishers, even we've started doing those rounds and get our funds. So I'll be honest with you guys, it's been the scariest, hardest thing I've ever done. I left Riot Games. I moved in with my parents. I moved all in, and I'm still standing here because it's been a dream come true, and you just learned so much, and we've still got it. You know what I mean? So it's like, if we run out of funding, I'm honestly like, okay, we'll just keep going.
Just keep going. I mean, it's funny because, like, again, that there are no coincidences type of deal where, like, I've definitely lived that life in a sense.
We talked about it.
I never got into Riot. You were Riot, and then you were like, actually, Riot, peace out. I got to go do something else. And but that shows how much you believe in what you're doing, right? And I think that's a great indication. It's funny because I think one of the best pieces of advice I got for fundraising, I got recently actually, and it was a really simple one-liner. It was people don't have to believe you; they have to understand you. And it's so funny because I was like, you unpack that line.
I totally get
that.
Brilliant.
And I think that's one of the things that I think as an indie is so hard to package up your passion about whatever you're doing into like into like a 1 or 2 line, like a pitch, right? Even because in this conversation, I hear it, man. I love what you guys are doing, and it's like man, this is a no-brainer.
We're
come on, guys.
$4 billion.
Right.
Yeah,
where's my check? I got my
checkbook. Yeah.
As if
you're right though. You're right though, Sham. And it's to be honest, like I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at packaging it up. When you get in front of investors, right? People that have millions of dollars, it's so easy to be like, oh my God, like, try to explain it really clearly. But when you're around buddies, it's like it just comes flying out of you. But yeah. And you've been really good, Sham, about giving advice there. Like, hey, what about this? Clean that up and make
unwanted
it tight,
advice, I'm sure. By the way.
No, always welcomed, actually. But that is the challenge. And I'm going to take that little nugget with me. That's good. This is the thing.
I think what you guys have done when you're switching the system, I think a lot of times, it's a C will kind of explain what you're saying, right? So if you feel like you guys weren't hitting what you wanted to do in the combat system, and now you are, like that's gonna be massive for right?
And shit, so maybe to connect some dots in the conversation, like I brought all of those strategics and VCs. We played some publishers. They played our pre-alpha, and
sure.
And they weren't like, let's see. There wasn't a follow-up call. You know what I mean? So that's you just gotta look at that data point of like, okay, they got to the table and they weren't excited. That means it's not there yet. We don't have it. So
but now if you're feeling it, like you feel that energy, because again, it's kind of the same thing for us. Like it's like, okay, we kept seeing we were doing these amazing models, and we kept seeing like and environments.
Your game is gorgeous, by the way. Like, oh my God, literally, you can literally see it.
Thanks.
I mean, it's so
Yeah, but so like we weren't able to like maybe highlight that in the way that we really wanted to, right?
Sure.
And I think that's you. It sounds like you guys have kind of that similar story. It's like you really want to bring. Let's tell a story, right? That's kind of what you guys are doing. And if you're feeling like, oh well, the story is me reading cards, maybe it wasn't feeling like what you wanted to. I don't know what your new direction is, or if you're ready to talk about it or whatever, but it sounds like you guys are kind of finding that, and that's exciting. That's so cool.
Yeah, this will be fun to talk about. So in our first prototype, we dropped in an AI NPC from our world. We used in-world, shout out. And for about a month and a half, every day we had players writing us in our Discord being like, look, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Now that's not, in a year or two, that's many games are going to have that, right? Like that's not novel. But the magic that we found was, I'll never forget this moment with our narrative team. We actually have this clip from a player who asked Malar Nightbringer what his favorite color was, and after the conversation, he goes, "It's the deep crimson of blood of the battlefield," something like that, right? Like, and I remember the narrative team being like, "That's exactly what Malar Nightbringer was saying." Now apply that technology and that thinking to where if you were a character in a game and you came up to Gandalf from Lord of the Rings and you asked him, "Gandalf, what's your favorite color?" And after a meaningful conversation where he answered he said
like,
something
it used to be
that.
gray, but now it's white.
Exactly, right? To your character, wouldn't you be like, oh my God? So my point here being, we weren't building towards that, you know what I mean? And now, like this week, our lead engineer has an environment where we're dropping Malar in, and we're already starting to feel story come out of him, right? Like create stakes and trigger moments where now we're giving him a thing that the players need to find out from him, and then connecting that to a combat. So we're literally going back to the studs, but the vision, we talk about this, right? Now it's clear. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, we can build that experience that we're going for again with a lighter card combat system where that doesn't get in the way of the story. You know what I mean? And that's just what game development is. You got to stumble, you got to get lost a little bit in the weeds to find the clarity that you're looking for. So,
I mean, I think oftentimes that stumble, like, because let's just use ours for example, like. Let's say some of the cons didn't show up, or we didn't notice them, or maybe they weren't even there, and we ended up sticking with that combat system. Like maybe we get there, maybe it's awesome, who knows? But once you do find something that is like I can just honestly say it's just way better. What we're doing now, what we're doing is just way better.
It's like we just poured like rocket fuel over the previous system.
Oh my God, I literally said that verbatim yesterday. I said it's like we took rocket fuel and poured it on the fire. Our symbol. Yeah, really good.
It's part of it. It's like if you don't have that, like you said, fail forward. Like if you don't have that, actually a lot of VCs, a lot of investors in general won't invest in you unless you unless you failed,
Failed.
which is kind of funny.
Yeah. But
kind of a weird thing.
Well, no, I
Yeah, I've
remember
heard
hearing
that.
that
Yeah,
and being like, what? And now I completely get it. Because that
Yeah.
means you're innovating, right? That means you're finding
trying
something
stuff.
new. Yeah, you're trying stuff that hasn't been done before. And like that literally requires failure. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Know that
I
you're
mean, like,
doing it, so.
But also that continuous improvement, right? Because if you just stick with the first model that you put out, you know, the first direction, well, you've had no kind of like iteration, no continuous improvement along the way, then you're not really thinking about your project. And, you know,
Right.
so to have those kind of moments in time where it's like, look, step outside of, we're doing this game code, we're doing this development, and actually just say, does this feel good? Does this feel fun, exciting? Like, you know, does it feel like we've got it right? You need time to do that.
Yeah, I'm reading the Lean Startup right now. I'm about halfway through it. Shout out. If for those of you who don't know that book, I highly recommend if you're in a startup at all. But it's what you're talking about, Simon, the model there is build, measure, learn. And it's iteration cycles, right? Build quickly, paper and pencil stuff if you need to, right? And then measure is play it and be like, how does this feel? What is this good? And then learn, like, what didn't work? Like, what didn't we like? Yeah. And the faster you can do that, like the faster those iteration cycles are, the faster you will get to a product that ultimately people love, that
don't let me forget, Steve, like I've got someone to connect you with related to the Lean Startup. Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a sham superpower. You're so good at doing that. I love that about you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, look, I think what's so, you know, why I wanted to have you guys on the show is because, like, I really think you know, what you're building, this idea of the transmedia, of having kind of like both sides of it. I think this is one of those things where once you or some other group does it, it's going to be like, oh shit, this is, oh guys, this is what we're doing now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's tough to be at that bleeding edge, but when you guys make it and when you guys get it done, right? I'm too psyched, man. It's so cool.
You know what's cool about that, Sham? It's, yes, I've literally said that before. That I swear, once someone's going to do it, and then everyone's going to start doing it. And we're also seeing it. Like, we also already have it. I really liked when Dungeons and Dragons, the movie, came out, and I'm going to leave my on that movie aside. But man, that was kind of a light bulb moment for me. It was like, imagine if the plot line of Dungeons and Dragons, the movie, where, you know, they beat the Mind Flayer, kind of what happened, I don't know. Connected into Baldur's Gate 3. And like, that's where the story picked up. Definitely. And players were like, wait a minute. We're continuing the story. Like that's, you know, that's that transmedia experience that.
And then take it one step further.
Disney and Marvel are going to be like, wait, guys, we should just start doing that. But here's what's neat though, Sham. Sorry, I'll sprinkle this in there.
No.
It's actually really cool to be at the cutting edge as a startup because we're crazy flexible. Like big studio. I was at Riot, like, it's really hard to move the gears when you're that big and get a game to line up with a show. I mean, that it was cool being a part of Arcane, and also frustrating as a player and a writer and a fan being like, but the story has nowhere to go in any of our titles. You know what I mean? And
you did play Vi. Yeah,
pick Vi, go.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, you don't really connect in the same way. Maybe when the MMO comes out, they can start to link stuff.
Then maybe,
but that's some years away.
So. And there's an advantage of having a big universe, but that's the point, right? Is like, well, Michael's been developing the Forgotten King, the world of Eldaron, for 7 years, so we already have this whole world that we're sitting on. You know what I mean? That's informing everything that we're doing with the game. So, anyway, sorry, I get all jacked up about it, but thank you, Sham.
No, but that concept, actually, to take it one step further, is like, okay, so you play the game, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, the movie comes out, it ends, that kind of continues, and then you could have some type of in-game thing that, okay, well, if this happens, then this is the direction of the next part of the show. If this happens, then this is the next part of the direction of the show, and that's going to feel really cool. That's when I feel like, oh, now we're talking transmedia. Now it's like linked.
I get one of the things that gets me the most excited is when I'm teeing you up. I'm teeing you up. Is literally when Michael does this, when he starts thinking about Easter eggs and like, wait a minute, I can put this item in the game that when it comes up in the show, players will be like, oh my God, I found that. I did. Okay, oh my God. Yeah. Is that what you're going to say?
Kind of.
Sorry, I stole your thunder. I'm sorry.
It's okay. The Easter egg things is, that's really cool. But there's two things that I think illustrated pretty clearly. I have 7 seasons of a show mapped out. I've written the first season, but arcs and character, I know where everything goes. And then 7 adventure paths. Just think of D&D adventure path mapped out that connect everything. You know what I mean? So if you're not a gamer and you just want to watch the show, you can watch the first season of the show, then probably watch like a 3-minute recap trailer of what happened in the adventure path, and then watch the second season, and that's fine. And if you're just a gamer and you just want to play adventure path, you could do that too. But if people do both, I think it will. Well, Sham, you already said this. I think it has the potential to change how people think about gaming and entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, especially because it's an animated fantasy series and has the same visual layout.
Fully interactive in a sense, right? It's kind of
I want to posit this too, because this has helped people kind of wrap their mind around it, and it touches to the complexities that we were talking about earlier, Simon. Think of how Rogue One operates in the Luke Skywalker saga, right? If you're familiar with that, hopefully if you're watching or listening, you are. But the story of Rogue One is just they get the plans to destroy the Death Star, and it's in oh my gosh, is it the 4th or 5th one, right? They're just like thousands of people died to get these plans. That's all it is. Like, that's the connective tissue. That's the same way that Michael's writing the show in the Adventure Pass. Is so like it's okay if you
could experience them.
Yes,
alone,
if you don't watch Rogue
but it's
One,
way
you
more
can watch
immersive
all
if you
of
get
the
all of it.
Skywalker films, and you're like, cool, like no big deal. But if you do watch Rogue One, you're like, wait a minute, now I see. That's what the connective.
And
Star Wars is doing it right now with the shows too. Go ahead.
And the Easter egg thing is fucking bananas. Sorry, I don't know if we can swear, but that's fucking bananas. Like, the idea that there's things I can write in the show and have things happen that then when you play the adventure path, think like you find items. You find like a sword. You're like, is this Jon Snow's sword? Holy shit. Like, stuff like that. And then it actually goes the other way too. I really like the idea of players. I always think of the Willy Wonka golden ticket thing. Like, imagine some boy in India creates a traveler in our game who has a name and does some cool stuff. And we know that, so I can take that character and write him into the show. Not in a probably super meaningful main character way, but in a way that, could you imagine that type of entertainment experience where you made a character and you got a Willy Wonka ticket that they get written into the show?
But hold on, to speak to what you're saying, maybe in a meaningful way. And that's, I think, that's the next step in some ways, right?
It is. Right.
Maybe it is.
It's like Ready Player One fantasy.
Yeah.
But how many times though do you either watch a series or play a game and just think to yourself, or even read a book, honestly, I just need something more about this right now.
Yeah.
And being able to dive into that other form of media and get it, it just feels like it's a no-brainer for the future for sure. So
it is.
It feels like a no-brainer.
It is.
We need a lot of money though.
That's always the same.
Pretty full circle too, which is we're great on timing too. We are.
Yep.
Guys, this was super fun. Yeah.
We could talk for hours. It's great.
Part 2 next week, Brad. What do you think? You ready to close this out? Yeah.
That's right.
I was just letting you guys cook. I was just enjoying the chat. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. And we're gonna link to the Story Games website down below and all that good stuff. Definitely check out what they're doing over there. It's gonna be epic, and it was really fun to chat with you guys. So thanks for taking the time to join us, and we will see you soon in the next Fateless podcast episode.
Guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
it was
for
great
coming,
to be
guys.
here.
Awesome.
Thank you.